Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome to episode 117, part 2 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I'll be joined shortly by my co-host, Johnny Cullen, Kid Cully himself. But I am joined by two special guests tonight from the show The Drop on ESPN. Greg Wyshinski and Arda Ocal. Boys, thanks for hopping on with me. I very appreciative. How are you both after what I assume has been a very long week?
Why is this episode one part 2 of an episode? What?
We did part 1. We did our deadline edition earlier. If I'm going to do them both in one day, I don't want to drop a 4-hour-long episode or anything like that. So I broke it up into 2.
I know. Well, I feel like we're in a Mission Impossible sequel. It's like Dead Reckoning Part 2.
Part 2.
What the hell's happening here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I appreciate it.
No, and to answer your question, this deadline was more exhausting than any other deadline because it's gone on for a month, and so like today wasn't bad. Today was like a manageable workflow, but good God, man, like the whole lead up to it was a lot of work, man.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. It was a deadline kind of like unlike any other. I've never seen it that active that far beforehand. Like, by the time the deadline day got here, I mean, pretty much the top 5 players, top 6 players on the trade bait, everybody's trade bait list was gone. Buffalo was able to, get Jordan Greenway today. After listening to Kevin Adams' press conference about it, he mentioned about how Don Granato demanded that he trade for Jordan Greenway, which I found very interesting. But just overall, obviously with the East getting so much more powerful, what did you take away from the past 72 hours? And just, who benefited the most and who came out the biggest loser?
My biggest takeaway is that the East is preparing for a Royal Rumble. Going to be pandemonium. It's just funny. Like you look at the teams that loaded up, and like some of these teams are not going to make it past the first round of the playoffs. Like it's like in many other years, these teams could have had deep playoff runs.
Exactly.
They're facing it's almost like a conference final in the first round in multiple, like the Devils and Rangers and the Lightning and Leafs. Those could be conference finals in other years. And we're seeing them in the first round. So the quality of competition in the East is outstanding. And for the Sabres, I mean, I like Greenway as a pickup. I think that they're an exciting team to watch. Like that's not a secret. Like I told you this, I texted you this, Duane. Like the Sabres to me overall are one of the most exciting teams in the NHL. They're like top 5 in terms of like, if I'm just tuning in as a fan and I'm suggesting to a non-hockey fan, like where they should start this season, I'm throwing McDavid out there. I'm throwing the Sabres out there. I'm throwing McKinnon and McCarr. Like I'm giving them.
Yeah. So, okay. That's a good thought exercise. So the Sabres, the McDavid,
like excitement, like pure,
Colorado.
like get them hooked on hockey.
Hold on. Colorado, the Devils.
Yeah, because they're fast. Exactly.
And then who'd be the other one? We're missing probably the Bruins, probably just because you're watching
like dominance, right?
A team that dominates. That's a good list.
Yeah,
I like that.
Like domination wise, but the Sabres are there. They're right there in terms of excitement value. Like they're like the grab your popcorn because they're so much fun to watch.
Yeah. And before you hopped on, Greg, me and Arda were talking, and the last time I spoke to both of you was obviously on the return of Jack Eichel, where I came on right after, that guy, Rick Janneret, what a guy to follow on any interview, especially here in Buffalo. But
We booked Rick Jenneret followed by Duane.
Right.
Exactly.
The next Rick Jenneret.
That's some Vince McMahon booking if I've ever seen it.
Great booking.
But anyways, that night was a huge culture shift for that team. You know, the barn was packed. I mean, I've never seen an empty net goal mean so much to a franchise. And when Alex put that game away on a sharp angle, it just, you know, and everything that's come from that, you know, his addition to the team, Peyton Grubbs being a little ball of energy out there. And then obviously the final piece of, I guess, of the Jack Eichel trade being Jordan Greenway. They used the second round pick that, you know, they got in that deal to trade for him today. Just that, what's your guys' opinion on the absolute shift since that night, you know, which was obviously a big talking point across the league, Jack's return to the team, and where they are now?
Well, where they are now is a level of buy-in that's sort of antithetical to what they experienced with Jack, right? Like, so you've got Tage Thompson on a long-term deal and Cousins on a long-term deal and Dahlin. There's a core of players, and obviously, you know, power is controllable for a long time. There's a core of players that are going to be there and that have given the franchise kind of this like foundation that it hasn't had in a long time of stability. And you know, I did some a Buffalo radio hit earlier today, and we talked about stability, and we talked about like the psychological damage that's still inherent from LaFontaine leaving and Briere and Drury and the thing that happened with Jack. And like, just to have a core group that you know is going to be there for like the next 5 years is such a Herculean leap forward for the franchise at this point. And it's great to see.
And not only players that want to be there, right?
Yeah.
Like to wish
like Tuck wants to be
Tuck
there.
He grew up maybe I put too much value in this. I know, I say this a lot on the drop. Like, I just love this. We were talking about this with Luke Shen. Like, I love the storyline of, you know, like there's a sentimental value to being on this team. And like Alex Tuck grew up a Sabres fan. He grew up relatively nearby, right? Like driving distance anyway. And like, he wants to be on the Sabres. He was happy to join the Sabres, even when they weren't a good team, right? Like last year, they had, what was it, like 10 years not making the playoffs. And like, this was almost like a reset button with the Jack Eichel saga over. But Alex Tuck comes in. He's like, no, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to help be part of the rebuild. I want this. This is awesome for me. You could see him as a captain someday. You know what I mean? Like, I love those storylines. And like, speaking of storylines, like the Sabres have so many great ones, right? The first overalls. Like, let's see how Owen Power does. Let's see how Rasmus Dahlin does. Center stage Thompson, dude. Like, I call him this on In the Crease all the time. The guy's awesome. He is so awesome, right? And then, like, this is a short-term storyline, but like Craig Anderson's 41 for crying out loud, and they did him dirty, dude. That should have been a 50-save performance. I don't like the saves being taken off the board. What is that?
I know.
Give him the 50 saves.
I haven't seen somebody this passionate about Craig Anderson in like 25 years. Listen, the point, his points are good, but like, to go to your point though about the Greenway deal, like, that's what they should do at this deadline. They didn't have to do anything else. If they had ended up with Chychrun, that would have been fine. Like, I feel like that would have been a trade that could have helped them in the next couple of seasons. But even then, it's kind of like, go and buy low on a guy that's got a couple of seasons of control, that maybe has a ceiling, that you know already is a very accomplished defensive player, that has a little bit of ties to the area. Like, that's the kind of smart move I wanted to see them make. I didn't want to see them go and do anything else grandiose, because I think the plan is working right now.
By the way, Duane, Jordan Greenway immediately becomes the heaviest player on the Sabres roster, even more than Tage Thompson. What is he, like 235 or something like that? This is amazing.
He's a big boy.
Just bigger than Tage. Center stage is 6'6". Hey, what's up? Kid Cully's in the house.
Hey, guys. Arda, Greg, huge fans. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry I was late getting the kids ready to go back to mom's house. You know how it gets. So it was always an adventure with them. But no, seriously, thanks for coming on. Sorry I'm late. But hey, I had a quick Greenway question for you guys. He came out of school, and there was I remember didn't he whether get traded or have to go to a new school right before he came into the league? Didn't he transfer?
Is Buchagras here? How the hell are we supposed to remember?
I don't know. I heard Greenway come up. I thought maybe you guys would know. I just thought that he got dealt. Not a big deal.
Now listen,
Continue on.
Star Wars season 4.
Johnny Cullen coming in hot with an
There was
off-the-wall
a
question.
scene on Mandalore. No, I'm just kidding. Like,
He didn't listen.
I remember there being some issue, but like the bottom line with Greenway is that he had some time with the Wild. They waited for him to blossom. They clearly they made that deal for that trade for two reasons. Like one, I think they're cutting bait with him because he just hasn't built on what he looked like he was going to build on from last season, where he was on a really hot line. That line didn't work this year. They decided to move on from him. But two, you got to remember, like $3 million for the next 2 seasons for the Wild is a pretty big deal for a guy that doesn't really do much offensively, because they've got $14.7 million tied up in 2 buyout contracts for Suter and Parise. So the economic part of it too was the reason why the Wild had to move off him, and it's to the Sabres' gain, I think.
I think so too, and how much of that obviously goes to losing a piece like Fiala, who might not be the sexiest name around North America, but he's made an impact on the Kings.
Yes,
in the same effect to what you're saying, it's helped drain away some of that secondary scoring for Minnesota.
It did, but I think they've got kind of a long game thought here, right? Like losing Fiala is not something they wanted to do, but at the same time, they couldn't give him the contract that he wanted. But Kaprizov is still relatively young. Boldy and Rossi are both young. Like they've got a long game kind of thinking here that goes beyond this season, and I guess what they're hoping is that once they get out of cap hell with those penalties for the Parise and Suter buyouts, like they're going to be able to still be able to build a good team around what they already have. Yeah,
and another thing too I found interesting, and there's some quotes here. I'll pull them up here in a moment, but like how demanding Don Granato was of the organization, of Kevin Adams, to go get Jordan Greenway. There were a lot of rumors last offseason before he signed that extension. I think it was last offseason that he might be available. And there was some hype around here at Buffalo because he did really fit the mold of what we needed in Buffalo. Because I mean, at face value, Buffalo isn't a very tough hockey team. Yeah, I get called like Peyton Krebs a little ball of energy, but that's really what he is. Nobody's scared of Peyton Krebs. I don't care how many fighting majors he has this year. Samuelson plays a heavy game, sure. Tage Thompson's a giant, but he's not out there to fight. And Dylan Cousins,
he's a gentle giant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Dylan Cousins, as much as he reminds me of a guy like Michael Pekka, and 1,000%, I think that's the type of game he's going to play. I think is a more finesse version of Pekka. You don't want those guys out there being those, tough grinder, playing those roles. You bring in a guy like Jordan Greenway, who is going to make teams think twice when he's out there on the ice. And that's what this team has really needed, especially in the defensive zone.
Right.
How much of a comparable can we draw between him and Tom Wilson? Because Tom's a guy I played against in division, and as nasty as he was, we always a pro off the ice, seeing each other in the tunnel at the old Plymouth rink. But that's who. I haven't seen a ton of Greenway. Wilson's kind of been that prototypical. Yeah, he's a heavyweight, but the guy can also play on top 6 minutes on the best lines with some of the best players in the world. Is that a good comparable for Sabres fans that might be familiar with a Wilson? I know there's some differences there, but just curious on that comparable.
Well, Greenway's not a sociopath. I like Tom Wilson a lot, actually, but I think the difference is that Greenway doesn't have the offensive upside that Wilson has. Like Wilson has it's not charity work in Washington. Like that dude has earned top line minutes and stayed there and served his purpose, obviously, as being sort of an enforcer, but also a guy that can produce numbers. Greenway, if you look through his history, he's not a finisher. He doesn't really have a goal scorer's touch. Where I think he can grow offensively is as a playmaker. Like he should be able to create more offense on a line when he's doing the work of being a solid defensive player and being a physical presence. He just hasn't generated enough points. But I think he can. It's just a matter of finding the right combination that can unlock that.
So, I mean, for seeing him in the Sabres fit in their lineup, right? Me and Duane talked last night about it. Tuck obviously out, but you have a guy like Tage Thompson that I think was a benefactor of playing with a guy like Tuck, and now we're starting to see the slump. As it stands right now, like you just mentioned, he's probably that middle sixth role.
I'd say that's where you start him and
Yeah.
see where it goes. I mean, there's always room for improvement, right? Like if you start someone in the middle six, like if Greenway starts there and then shows promise, then all of a sudden, who knows? It could be an injury. It could be you're doing so well, we're going to promote you. You could be just like, mixing up lines. Like I'm a fan of that. Like tinker with the lines, see what works and what doesn't. Like Gerard Gallant does that really well, right? Like he just tinkers a lot, maybe a bit too much for people's liking, but like I like it to a degree because then you're really starting to understand exactly what you're getting. So yeah. I in Don Granato, we should trust in terms of where he would have the best fit.
And we do. And Donnie, what do you call him, Duane? Donnie Meatballs?
Yeah, everyone here calls him Donnie Meatballs. Nickname garnered him by Anthony from the Expected Buffalo. It definitely caught a lot of fire. There's a lot of T-shirts out here. Donnie Meatballs T-shirts. Speaking of Granato, that quote I mentioned earlier, Kevin Adams says Don Granato was pounding the table for Jordan Greenway. Granato said, "I know if we get him in our environment, I believe we're getting.
Let's go. We need. You know what? Can we just take a moment? We'll leave you in a minute here, but like, can we just take a moment to appreciate someone banging a table and being really spirited for getting Jordan Greenway? We need Jordan.
Hey, that's Buffalo, baby.
Apparently, Joseph Stalin is your coach. Pounding on the table,
the big old cigar out of his mouth, just like we need Jordan Greenway.
He will turn the tide of the
Rush the Toronto Maple Leafs. Give me Jordan Greenway. I have no idea if that's the correct accent.
In NHL war room. That's what I want to know. A demand for Jordan Greenway. We need
Jordan Greenway. And then obviously the other deal made a few days before was Riley Stillman. I mean, I'm not really too sure how to feel about him yet.
Duane, tell him the truth. You hate the deal.
I hated the deal because we gave up a decent prospect for him. I felt like Vancouver definitely won that trade, but I'm not a pro scout. I'm not an NHL level coach, so maybe they see something in the guy that I don't. I do know he plays a physical style of hockey, much more physical brand than most defensemen we have on the team right now.
Yeah.
But I always feel that he sacrifices a lot to be physical, in terms of, staying in position and, getting into lanes. And I feel like he goes out of his way sometimes to be too much out of his way to be physical.
Well, listen, we'll leave you guys with this. I think Sabres are in a good spot. I think that the days of year after year missing the playoffs are quickly coming to an end. You can see the finish line. I'm saying this as an objective fan. I think that there's a lot to be excited about and also positive about for this roster. And by the way, speaking of goaltending, you might have the best goaltending prospect in your system. Right?
Kevin Levi, baby.
Yeah, like that, just think about, and obviously goaltenders take a while longer to mature than forwards, but just think a matured, in his groove, Devin Levi spearheading this Buffalo Sabres team, that sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Also, he's young, so he can't leave. I just want to reiterate that. These people are prisoners. They can't leave you. They're not going to hurt you.
What's with the political
stuff? If they want to have their neck surgery, let them have their goddamn neck surgery. Don't chase them away like you did the other guy. But otherwise, they're going to be stuck there. It's great.
Actually, I do know we had Devin on the show earlier.
A friend of the program, Devin Levi.
And he's a great kid, and he's excited to be a part of Buffalo. He has ties to Buffalo back from when he was 12 years old. He won his first major junior hockey championship here. And
are you guys worried that Portillo is going to end up being a better player than?
No, I think Levi's ceiling's way higher. Look at the numbers, Wish. You go back to similar guys into their first 2 years of college. You got Ryan Miller, Richter, who else? Johnny Quick. I know that the timeline for goalies is later. One of the reasons why I look back at my own career and rushing into the OHL, you get all this more time, maybe not till 25, 26. Right. I've seen enough of Levi to know that I think he is got a superior ceiling to Portillo. And if you're Portillo, and this is not a shot against Eric, another friend of the program, we've had him on, but wouldn't you? I know you want to be the guy, but like, what message are you sending? Why not invite that competition? If you lose the job, we'll deal you then. Like, the grass isn't always greener.
Right.
Wait. First of all, we got to show the proper respect. That's Blue Jackets legend Jonathan Quick. Okay, please show the proper respect.
Listen, I totally agree with Johnny. I think the best way to find out, the best way to read a player is how they thrive under competition when their back is up against the wall. That's when you really learn about a hockey player.
And Duane, on that note, you guys know the shadiness that went down with Strassman leaving early and Steve and everything. Like, we don't need to get into that, but like, right. I don't know, something like to me doesn't smell right there. If you really believe in yourself and you need to be a goaltender in the NHL, and I'm not saying that's the reason. That's how I look at it. If you don't want the competition, fine. You don't want to be a part of this program, that's fine. But I mean, if you don't think that you can go out there and beat that next guy, are you a National League player? I don't know. I love Levi.
Does it bother you at all that Portillo is named after a delicious hot dog chain in Chicago, while Levi's named after pants?
Hey, we're Salins people around here. You know that.
Salins. My last question to you two. You let you go. WrestleMania predictions. Guys, WrestleMania season is upon us. Greg, you especially. I know you're a big wrestling buff like myself. The bloodline might fall apart starting tonight if they haven't already. How are you feeling heading into WrestleMania season?
Okay, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think my thought is it was Cody Rhodes all along. However, I don't think anyone anticipated how over Sami Zayn would get.
Oh, my God.
And I think that is a good problem to have. However, it might have unfortunately diluted the Cody Rhodes storyline a little bit too much, because I think there's going to be a pocket of fans that are upset when Cody Rhodes wins the championship that it's not Sami Zayn, because he's done so well the last several months.
That's why Cody will win thanks to interference by Sami. That sets up a rematch with Roman saying that he didn't lose cleanly, and you continue the storyline that way. The fans get to celebrate Sami, they get to celebrate Cody, they get to see Roman lose, but it opens the door for the feuds all to continue.
I think you just got to separate the belts at this point. Like, I think
you know what I thought was going to happen? I thought it was going to be like a WrestleMania 2000. Remember when Kurt Angle had the triple threat match and it was for both titles?
Yep.
I thought it was going to be like Roman defending each title against Sami and Cody, and they just pin each other for both belts, so Roman doesn't get pinned, but he loses both titles.
Right.
Ian and Taker did that one time to Stone Cold. It wasn't the undisputed title, but I remember
both pinned at the same time. Yep. Were you there? That was in Hamilton, bud.
Of course,
I was not there, but I remember very vividly.
That's like half an hour from you.
Of course, there's something we're all missing, which is that Vince is back. So it's entirely possible that it'll be a triple threat with Rhodes, Roman, and Lesnar. By the time we get to WrestleMania.
Right.
I got this under the glass of my table. Fully loaded 97. Austin versus Undertaker first blood match.
Wow.
McMahon fired. My dad took that picture while we were in the crowd. That's an old Kodak right there.
That's a Marine Midland Arena. They had some great WWF shows.
The next time we come on the show, full wrestling talk. We're gonna book the next year. All right?
How could Undertaker lose a first blood match? He doesn't have any blood. He's a dead man.
No, that was Kane. Kane and Taker. Remember that first blood match where Kane was like fully covered?
Yeah.
He had no skin exposed. It was like, how's he gonna lose this match?
Yep. Yeah, but I appreciate you guys coming on with us, man. I really do.
Boys, thanks for having us.
Absolutely, guys. That was Arda Ocal and Greg Wyshinski from The Drop on ESPN. Absolute great guests. I've gotten to know Arda a lot over the last year.
They're great people, dude.
Yep, absolutely. And Arda's always excited to talk hockey. He's a dude, Johnny. He's a guy that I could get on to come on literally anytime he wants. And he's like,
I would love it, because that's my first time interacting with him. And I've listened to their show. I've been a big fan of both their works. Follow both of them. He's just got ball of life, Duane, and you're right. I think he knows his stuff. He articulates it well, and he brings a little jam, and I like that, because I don't have enough jam to go around.
No.
But hey, I was gonna ask. I didn't want to sound stupid. I used to have a favorite wrestler. My brother was really into WWE, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to say Bret the Hitman Hart, but it wasn't. It was Shawn Michaels. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah.
So if I would have brought up Shawn Michaels and said, "Hey guys, I was a closet Shawn Michaels fan as a youngster, but I have gotten destroyed."
No, I don't think you would have. I mean, you're not as a diehard like me and Greg. Greg, he goes to a lot of.
My brother is.
Stuff. But one thing that's a good storyline that if you want to jump down the rabbit hole is the Montreal Screwjob from 1995 or 96. I can't remember what year it was when Bret Hart had a title match against Shawn Michaels for the WWE title, but that was the last day. That day was the last day of Bret Hart's contract with WWF, not WWF.
Yes.
And he was going to WCW because the WWF couldn't afford him anymore, and Vince asked him to,
take some less
negate his
money.
contract.
Hockey, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we need you to be a team-friendly deal.
There's a lot of layers to it, but being a guy from Calgary who's a proud Canadian, Bret Hart,
and owner of a WHL franchise. Sorry.
Yep, that's right. The Hitmen, right?
Yep.
Calgary Hitmen. He refused to drop the belt to Shawn Michaels in Canada. Now you have to remind you, at the time, there's a big Monday Night War going on with WCW, and Vince McMahon at one point had the women's champion with WWF jump ship to WCW, and she showed up on WCW TV with the WWF women's title, and she dropped it in a garbage can. That's terrible for business. So he doesn't want that to happen again to him with the most prestigious title he has. So they're trying to find a way to get him to drop the title. He'd agree to drop it.
That's what you meant with drop the title. I get it. Vacate it.
So Bret Hart agreed. I'll drop it the next day when we're not in Canada, but I can't drop it in Canada. It would kill my character. I would lose all momentum going to WCW. It would hurt.
Well, he's a Canadian guy too, right? You should know that, Vince. Maybe Vince did know it.
It's just that because you're trying to start a new career in WCW and you don't want to have your character destroyed before you get there. And losing to Shawn Michaels in Montreal would have done that. So there's weight to both sides of this argument. But with that being said, Vince McMahon schemed a plan with Shawn Michaels where Shawn put him in Bret's own finishing move, the sharpshooter, and Bret was supposed to kick out of it, but instead you tap out when you give up. The referee said, "Oh, he tapped out when he didn't," and they called the match and gave Shawn.
Like you're talking one of these?
No, just on the mat.
He went. Wait, I remember that match. So that's me and my brother used to wrestle, and that's how I didn't know the characters.
The initial plan for the ending of that match was going to be a no contest.
Right. So he went off script, and then so that finish.
That finish was not supposed to be the finish, according at least to Bret's knowledge. It was supposed to be a no contest DQ. They were gonna do the match the next night, and Bret was gonna drop the belt in the States. So Bret is like, what the hell is going on? The referee runs out of the ring. So Bret leans over because Vince McMahon's standing right there. He spits right in Vince McMahon's face. Tears apart the entire set. And then he goes into the back locker room, goes into Vince McMahon's office, and knocks him out.
Oh, I did hear about that part. Okay, yes, I do. No, okay, now I know what you're talking about. Because that was, like you said, now I understand some of the lead up to it. But I'm like, what would take this dude to go? I knew some shit went on, but wow. Yeah, who's Earl Hebner? Explain that to me.
Earl Hebner was the referee. He ran out.
He wanted none of it. Hey, you know what? I heard.
There's a great documentary called Wrestling with Shadows, and it's about Bret Hart and his family, and it was taking place during the lead up to the Montreal Screwjob. It was like a documentary about the Screwjob that was never
well-timed documentary. Yeah, that camera crew that did it beforehand, not knowing.
And even Bret Hart in that documentary goes, because he was even afraid something was going to happen that night.
Yeah, but you know what? How much of that goes back to Bret? Because from what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. From what I know about Vince McMahon is that he's I don't want to say this in the wrong way. He's a shady businessman. At least that's the character that he plays, right?
Yep.
So, like, if I was Brett leaving, even after all the relationships, because they had a long run, right?
Yep.
You have to suspect something might go down with that fucking guy. Like, I don't even know Vince. I don't even know the sport, but I knew. I don't know. That's fascinating. So it ends with him just one bombing Vince and just saying peace.
Yep, I'm out of here.
Did he ever come back? Did they?
Yep. Like 15, like over 10 years
Right.
later, he came back.
This was in the past 10, 15 years, right? When he came back at the end?
He came back, and they actually did a match that all was forgiven between him and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels was in on it. And it was a whole storyline. Vince actually faced Bret Hart in a match, I think, at WrestleMania. And it was crazy because at the time Bret Hart had some legal issues, where he was essentially trying to suing, or there's some type of lawsuit involving his health. And so Bret couldn't take any bumps during this match. He couldn't fall over. Vince really couldn't hit him, or else this punk company could sue him. So essentially they had to make it like where he got his family involved with the match and stuff like that. And he eventually pinned McMahon. But yeah, it was eventually, it all was forgiven years and years
I'm
later.
gonna check out that documentary. You know what? It's never that I've not liked wrestling. I think I just missed it. My brother loved it, and he would watch. What was it, Thursday Night Raw or whatever?
Well, Monday.
No, dude, I'm sorry, man. That's what I did. That's why Have you ever seen me more quiet than when you guys were talking about wrestling? Because I knew I was gonna say something fucking stupid. Okay? And just like that. What is it? Monday Night Raw? I said Thursday. Jesus, bro. No, but you know what? Love Arda, love Wish. If anybody doesn't follow Wish, he is a riot on Twitter.
Fantastic.
And then I don't know Arda's handle off topic, but no, dude, that I would love to have them back on, or even just Arda coming on whenever.
I'm going to pretend you didn't.
Hey, I'm sorry, brother. I respect the sport. I do. I never had my chance to get into it. Like. We had one of the belts. Oh, here's the story, so you can forgive me. I have such respect for the WWF and now WWE that when I was a captain in Windsor my last year, the player of the game, instead of getting the hard hat, I went out and bought the WWE belt, and we gave that to our best player of the game. So that's some respect, right?
Yep, that is.
Matt, give me that at least, brother.
Yep. From Mauricio Arenas, obviously we could touch more on today. Arizona wanted a top-line prospect, draft picks, and current young roster player. According to Kevin Adams today, when he did his press conference after the deadline was 3 p.m. deadline passed.
Did they get that, Duane?
They wanted that from us. What they wanted from us apparently was different what they got from Ottawa.
So this is what confuses me. All right, I knew that. So they're not going to trade him within conference, right? That's pretty safe to say. So who beat who to the punch? I mean, I get what you're saying, that was their offer to us, and who's there? The new GM in Arizona. Sorry, doesn't matter. Maybe
I don't remember.
How does Ottawa beat us to that deal? Because once we say no to that, and Ottawa doesn't have that to match, wouldn't you want Kevin to call back on that and be like, you know what? Mm-hmm. What is the best offer you have right now? Down to the last minute, what happened? You know what? That's interesting. Why didn't he wait in Arizona? Because to me, I think you could have gotten a lot more than they did.
I agree. You definitely could have, I think.
That's interesting. Who do you think that player would have been?
It's probably Savoy or Kulik, and Kevin Adams flat out said.
I wouldn't give up Kulik for anybody right now.
Either of those guys were non-starters for him.
I honestly, as much as I wanted Pat to come home, I wouldn't have given up Kulik and that Kane deal.
No way. No.
I think Gary Kulik will be somewhat like an Olofsson in that he comes over and does well sooner than expected. But I think as a European player, the more and more I watch Kulik, he's a bully around the puck. He can shoot. He's so fun to watch on the big ice because he's a bigger guy that can make plays, and he kind of goes back to what you were talking about with Greenway and what makes him a valuable asset. I think Kulik, for not known being a fighter, I think he's going to come in. He's not going to take any shit. He plays like a wrecking ball. I love that about him. I don't know.
I love that about him too.
So now let me ask you this: now that we have this Greenway trade, are you a little bit more cooled off than last night?
Speaking of Kulik, he just scored in Rochester.
That's what I mean. I love this guy. Every time I read about him, it's something good. So I know you were fired up last night for good reason. Didn't look good. Everybody's making themselves better. Same question I kind of asked Arda and Wish. In best case scenario, what is Greenway? Where is he sit going into next year? What kind of role? How does he help the Sabres win a Stanley Cup?
I think he adds a ton of depth to your bottom six, right? I mean, personally, I can't wait to see him on a line with Cousins. That's who I want to see him play with. Him and Dylan Cousins, because that's going to be a line that you're going to fear if you're the opposite.
Give me 1 second, because I love where your head's at. I wanna just go check out what the line combos are. Keep going. As I pull this up, I will. I think that's dynamite.
Last game they had Quinn up with Thompson and Skinner. I couldn't tell you the lines other than that after that.
I'll have it up in 2 seconds. But, I mean, so I didn't get the check fully. Greenway, he had a big dip in production this year. Obviously, I know that's more of, Minnesota struggling and the lines being shuffled. What is he projected to play here? Is he on the wing?
Yeah, he's probably going to be on the second line, I'd imagine. I could definitely see him being a second line guy. Here's the Kulik goal from earlier. It's a little dicey. The feed here from Rochester.
Yeah, but still, that's beautiful. And here's the other thing. He scores in a variety of ways.
Yeah, like you kind of whenever you see Olofsson score, even when it's fine, it's always kind of like the same goal. Like there's a lot more tools in Yuri Kulik's toolbox, and I think that's the big difference, right? It's not just the 5-on-5 stuff. It's just he has the ability to play in all areas of the ice. And I think that's what's the most appealing thing. And that's why I believe that, you're going to eventually see him replace Victor Olofsson. I don't see them bringing Olofsson back.
I don't either. And I think he's replaceable. Do you want to read this one? Agreed.
Experiment, change access, adjusted lines telling Duane. I've been telling Duane all year, experiment with depth when injuries, inconsistent play occurs, top 3 lines. Agree. Yeah. I wouldn't even be surprised if they mess around with Greenway on the top line. I mean, why not? He has size.
Can I go through them?
Yep.
I think this is an interesting thought experiment. You got Skinner, Thompson, and Jack Quinn right now. You got Middlestat, Cousins, Greenway. Oh, so there you go. Right away. They already have them listed there, and this is off a daily face-off. You got Peterka, Krebs, and Olofsson. So, I mean, let's put Tuck back in the lineup, okay? So Tuck bumps Quinn out of that right wing spot.
Yeah.
Where Quinn was playing with Middlestat and Cousins, wasn't he?
Quinn, yeah. No, Quinn, I remember it might have been 2 games ago. Quinn was up on the top line with Tage and Skinner. Might have not been last game, but I know it was at least 2 games ago. He was in the top line. They were tinkering with that.
Hey, can we pause the show for 30 seconds?
We're live.
Well, that sucks. Man, that's embarrassing. So what I was just gonna get to, because I wonder who comes out, and I don't think it's a game changer, but I do think it changes with what you do with Middlestat, Quinn. And you're right, Olofsson becomes. I don't want to see him go, but again, if he's only just going to score goals for us, I don't know if he's worth everything that we're going to need to pay him, because he's going to be up for, some decent money. So I guess let me get the info on on Greenway's contract. Is he somebody that we have long term? So the official deal is we get Greenway, they get a 2023 second from the Knights and a 2024 fourth or fifth. Sorry, so we don't. we get those picks. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. That was right. And so nothing this year that came from our own. I like this, man. The only thing that worries me is the 7 points this year, Duane.
No, and I agree. That is something to worry about. But again,
I know that's not why we got him, but
that's the thing though with him. It's I believe in Don Granato, and if Don wanted this guy that bad, and we didn't bring it up with Arda and Greg. Don has a lot of experience coaching him back in the U.S.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up, but we didn't have time. If we have time, I can buzz it off real quick. So he's a highly touted kid, Jordan Greenway. He played at Shattuck, obviously. Shattuck's famous for having guys like, Parisi and Jonathan Tays and Sidney Crosby. So he played there and then played U17 NDTP and then played U18 NDTP in 2014-15. And I'm just going to check real quick to make sure that was Donnie there at that time because I'm pretty sure it was. Yep. And it looks like he was there.
Yep. No, he was. I remember reading specifically that Donnie has experience with Jordan from the USN TDP days.
Yep, he was. Don Granato was the assistant, they had two head coaches, Danton Cole and Don Granato.
Yep.
Assistant coaches, Nick Ford, JD Forrest, who is a Syracuse guy. He played Boston College. Wow, that's awesome. So yes, he was his head coach in his last year of junior. And then after, what's funny? He played with you look at the guys that are, that he played with on that team. You got Jake Ottinger, and it just went away. But there's a bunch of other guys on that NDTP team. That'd be a fun exercise to do, Duane, as Americans, to go back through and look at the program, because it wasn't too long ago in our lifetime that just to have an American get selected in the first round was a big deal, right? And now you're seeing all these guys come from everywhere. That's outstanding. So just a rundown on Greenway, okay? He's a Canton, New York resident. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Canton, New York, place of birth, baby. He's making $3 million right now, and he was drafted, 50th overall. He's won a World Junior 18U, a World Junior, the World Junior 20U, and NCAA. I did not know that. So he went to Boston University, and I was wrong. He was at Boston University for all 3 years. I thought he changed schools. That's how I came into the interview. Wow, what a bad entrance for me. That was terrible. But like you said, he's been in the league now consistently since the year he left Boston. Played 5 career AHL games. His best season, averaging around 32 points, but 70 PIMs. Yeah. That's not bad. And it looks like he's dealt with some injuries though. Out of his past, outside of his first year where he played 81 games, and 19 and 20, he played 67. The next year, 56. The next year, 62. So far this year, 45. Can he stay healthy? That's another big question. I don't know, Duane. I like this trade. The more and more we talk about it, man, I've known who Greenway is for a while. As soon as you mentioned that, I immediately was, trying to figure out would Granato be there. I can't remember. Tell me this: when the last time that we had such a cohesive, well-working coach and general manager? Because the way you make it sound like Granato went out and said, "Hey, I want this guy," and what did our GM do?
Went out and got him. You
So
kind of think of like Brandon Bean with Sean McDermott. They probably have the same relationship.
Right, and I don't mean to sound like an asshole like that. Obviously, that's the way sports are supposed to work. But guys, it doesn't. Like I've seen it, you've seen it. Like you see people get fired all the time, and a lot of times there's a disconnect. Whether it's the general manager comes in and this isn't my coach, or the coach comes in, he's like, what, you know what I mean? And I think that this is the first time in a long time that we have a functioning front office, which is sad to say. I don't know. Go ahead.
You saw some cohesiveness with Darcy and Lindy. It was there. They had a great relationship with each other.
That deteriorated at the end, and it was sad. They did have a good thing going for a while, but you're right. That's a great last comparable. What's been the reaction from Sabres Twitter?
People seem to love it. I mean, you're not going to please everybody, right? People are going to be disappointed. People are still disappointed.
What are they pissed about with this trade, though? Like, have you seen anything?
There's nothing to be pissed about this. I mean, you didn't give up too much. He signed for 2 more years
at $3 million.
Granato guy.
$3 million is a great number, Duane. When this cap goes up, like, he's a bargain.
Yep, I agree.
And I don't think that he's put up the numbers unless he explodes down a stretch. He's not going to be due for a huge raise. He might be somebody in the new cap that you can get in at under 4, maybe 4 or 5. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If he proves what he can do and be a physical guy, I mean, that's your replacement to your. I hate to say that. I'm not saying he's a fourth line guy, but that makes a guy like Gergensons maybe a lot more replaceable, right? If he can prove himself on the kill. I don't know if he can. I don't know. But I think it goes back. I'm wrong to think about who he'll replace eventually because he is a different mold. And at least now, Duane, when those people have been yelling in Sabres Twitter, we need toughness. Okay, well, now you got a middleweight in Krebs that'll fucking fight anybody. You got a guy in Greenway that'll fight heavies. What?
He's a little fireball of energy.
I love it. You tell me besides them, I think Tage will fight but he's probably got a mandate that those hands are worth $6 million each. Careful.
Right.
But like Zemgus, I don't know. I haven't really seen him go. I bet you Peterka would. Okposo probably can with his head. And then on the back end. Yeah, so like I see it. I mean, here's the big question mark with me. Clegg and Bryson, really? We still couldn't find an upgrade over them two?
No, I just don't know what they see in Riley Stillman. I mean, they're just. I mean, what's the difference between outside of physical presence? I mean, in terms of depth chart, like what's the difference between Stillman, like you said, Clegg and Bryson? Like I would have loved to find a real legitimate replacement. Maybe you're not going to find a true top 4 guy now, but somebody that could replace one of those two guys consistently in this lineup because they find a way to hurt you almost every night when they're out there.
Who?
Bryson especially.
Why isn't Stillman in the lineup here on the Daily Faceoff? Where was he? Where did he play last night?
He was playing with Samuelson, I believe. So
they got Clegg in there and Bryson. They got Jokiharju with power on the top line, Samuelson, Clegg on the second one, Labushkin, Bryson. You know what? They're not. This isn't always perfect. Sometimes it can be a revolving door. Like when you lose your best forward, when you lose your best defenseman in Dahlin, and you lose one of your best forwards, if not your most complete forward and leader in Tuck. I talked to a few people in the know. I'm not going to drop any names. Somebody that we both know and respect. And we'll keep them anonymous at this point because, they have some connections to the league. But they mentioned to me, because I asked them, I said, how big of a deal is it using Tuck? And their immediate response was on or off the ice. And that's what I immediately said, off, because I know it's going to hurt us on. And they said he's been the fucking heartbeat of that team. Him and Josh Allen are boys. Like, he's been the driving force between getting the guys together. Like, I don't know. I know it sounds silly, but sometimes you need a good guy like that. Because
culture and vibes are such buzzwords, but I think with this team, it really has made a difference because that culture hasn't been there, man. It's been negative. Guys probably can't wait to get out of the rink after practice. Nobody sticks around and hangs out.
That's how it was when Jack and Sam were here. I'm sorry. I know it's been confirmed by enough people. We're not going to fucking slander anybody. But there was this, how you say, we're not the reason why we're in the slump, let's just get out of here. And it became cliquey. And I'm sure there's guys like, and I'm not going to name names, but I will. I'm sure there's guys like Zemgus Gergensons and maybe an Okposo, guys that have just been here that were like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not going to cover for this. Is what's wrong, right? Yep. And I think Kevin's alluded to that and how much Kyle's, been a part of this transition process. Because, guys, let's now remember, it's not easy to be an older guy in this league with a team, the youngest team in the fucking league, with a bunch of guys that are going to replace you and take your money, take your livelihood. Yeah. And then you see a guy like Okposo handle it so gracefully. I can't. I hope he gets remembered as a Sabre that better than I think he will, because that's a legacy question for you, Duane.
I think the last 2 years when it comes to Okposo have really meant a lot in terms of his legacy.
So much. But here's my question: is that enough to get him in the legacy of Sabres fans' minds? Is that enough to erase what he wasn't, I guess is the best way to put it, in the first 5 years? But I also think what he wasn't able to do in those 5 years was a lot more a symptom of the team rather than him, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Tuck has been the huge difference for that. And, to your points, getting the guys together, being a voice in the locker room, wanting to stick around, wanting to be around the rink, like those things matter. They really, really do.
So much so.
Maurice, what about any goaltending additional trade bait for these Sabres? Any ideas why Adams didn't pull the trigger? I mean, that's a question for Adams to decide. Maybe they just feel really comfortable with what they have for now, or maybe the ask was just way too high for goaltenders. Like, I don't know. I would have loved to have seen Johnny Quick. I think that would have been an upgrade over what we have.
I go back to my comment, Duane, college guy, seems like him and Devin would, I would say they play similar styles, but you look to comparables for Devin's game, and Quick's got to come to mind, right?
Yeah, just not even just because of size, like the athleticism.
Just stylistic, the way they're able to get cross crease, right? Like, yep. Duane, you go back to that save you were talking to me about in the semifinals of the Beanpot when he goes post to post and that split glove save. I don't know. I would have liked to seen that, but I mean, if he's coming in, I gotta want to think that, and I hate to give up on UPL, but he's not your guy. He's not your guy.
I don't think he's the one.
I don't think he ever will be.
I just think, me and you have had so many conversations about this too, Johnny.
I don't know how you keep playing
goaltender. What? I mean, I don't see enough in UPL that screams he's our number one guy. Does he make incredible saves? Absolutely. He made a handful of them last night.
A lot of those, Duane, and we've talked about this. Some of them are spectacular. He had no other way to make them. Sometimes they're the product of his own inability to stop a player, get a whistle when he needs to. So therefore, it looks like he has to make the spectacular save. We call it making it look easy. Like Carey Price was famous for this, and his skating was so good, and Lundqvist the same way. Lundqvist read the play so good that he made spectacular saves, but there were so many saves that might have looked non-sexy or boring that were incredible. Just because they were so positionally good. I think a lot of UPL's incredible saves come from that. Sorry, Duane. So back to that. I think you're right, but has he been consistent enough? Is he won? What's the last game that you remember that he won us? Not that he won, that he won for the team.
The San Jose game. I think it was the San Jose game. I wouldn't say he won us that, but he stood on his head.
I can't think of one
games where you can make the argument that he won it for us, but the thing
he gave us a chance to win, or he won it for us. I'm talking about that. Devin Levi won his team the Beanpot, yes?
Yes, 100%. 100%.
What game can you single-handedly say UPL won that game for us? And I'm not saying you need to come up with it. I'm just saying, shouldn't you be able to come up with one?
Yeah. You should be. You should definitely, a lot more should come to mind, but
right. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
The thing is, he has won us games this year.
Yeah, he's played well. He's played well. He's had stretches where he's played really well.
But in big moments, there have been times where he has really shit the bed or pissed on his leg.
And that's what scares me. So I'll kick it back to you. You've seen a little bit more of them than I have just recently. I want to see a young goalie gaining confidence and doing more and getting, I don't care if he has a rough game here and there, if that means that he's going to be more consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're a run and gun team, right? Donnie hasn't hit that from that fact. We're gonna play you hard, but we're not gonna sit back. You know what I mean? We're gonna give up some chances because we're taking chances, especially with that top line. So you need a goalie that's gonna make that timely save. You mentioned it last night. UPL is a guy that I think in this point in his career, you look back at some of these games we've lost. Give you an example. The last game, that penalty. I'm not saying that it's a penalty. Regardless, that's on him. That'd be the same thing if Skinner fucking buried somebody from behind in a 0-0 game and they scored on it. Like, you have to own that. So, Duane, as a goalie, when you took a penalty, did you not bear the fuck down and make sure that they didn't score on that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself in circles here. I don't think Lukanen's the answer, so I'm with you. I would have loved the rental and Quick. I would have loved
to be when I think of UPL, I think of
good 1B.
Baran.
Yes, but beautiful.
I think that's a great comparison.
It is. It is.
You have UPL on your bench for an injury. He's there. He's going to win you more than 50% of the game.
Yeah, a ball management replacement for a backup.
100%. I think Baran is a very good comparable when it comes to UPL.
Who etched out a 10-something-year career? I'm not saying UPL can't be in a National League goaltender. I just think he's not our guy. And if he's not our guy, then what are we doing? Now, is he just a holding spot and we have something done for the summer? Maybe. But, I mean, I'm trying to look here at the goal, like who's going to be available. 2023 NHL free agent goaltenders. And I mean, we'll see here in 2 seconds. I don't remember any.
I know UC Saros, his name was thrown out a lot because Nashville appears to be sellers.
For a team like Buffalo that has a guy in Levi, you would only make that move if Saros is gone by the time Levi gets here. I guess this is before I ask you about this, because I have the free agents right here, goalies. What is Levi's timeline? It scares me when I hear people with say, well, he's going to, do the Ryan Miller thing, play 2-3 years in Rochester. Like, I think you have a rare case in him. You don't rush him. I think he's ready for the National Hockey League in 2024. Like, I think you let him maybe start in Rochester, but if he has a good camp, Duane, and he proves he's the best goalie, fuck traditional wisdom. Like, if the kid can play, let him play. Are you with me on that, or where are you?
No, I'm 1,000% with you on that. I think that, do I think that Devin Levi is going to be here starting next season? No.
No.
There's a chance he could get a game or two in at the end of the season for sure. But I think it would be irresponsible unless in development camp he literally doesn't let in a puck.
But dude, you remember how well he played last development camp?
Yeah, he played fantastic.
That's what I mean. Like if he does that again and then comes into camp and is better than, let's just assume that the 4 goalies that are here are UPL, Comrie. I don't know if he'll be back.
He's still signed for another year.
Okay, so Comrie and UPL, Levi, and whether it's
they have that kid that they drafted in the 2nd round last year. I forget his name. It's a Finnish goalie.
Right. I don't think he'd be here for the final camp. Maybe it's your starter in Rochester.
He's definitely there for development camp. I don't know about regular camp.
Right. No, but my point is if you get into training camp, and he is that much. He's better than Comrie. He's better than UPL. How do you not? How do you look at your team? How do you look at Tage Thompson and talk and say, you know what? I know, and that this guy's good enough to play, but we're not going to let him. I think that, and that's where I'm going to get shit on because that goes against traditional wisdom that goalies aren't ready. I just think that Levi's a unicorn that way. I don't expect him to. Maybe he goes and starts next year in Rochester, but if he shows he's ready, we've been waiting, and I'm willing to wait. But if that's the case, wouldn't you have gone out this year, like you said, Duane?
Yeah.
Here's your options for next year. Jonathan Quick, unless he re-signed that. Semyon Varlamov. Ben Bishop's retired. Frederick Anderson, Bernier, Cam Talbot, Tristan Jarry, Kadobin, Nedeljkovic, Blackwood, Laurent Brossoit, Reimer, Mike Smith, who's retired, Aiden Hill, Corey Schneid, retired, Antti Ranta, Ilya Samsonov.
Yeah, is Samsonov. That could definitely be a target.
The Leafs are going to want to eat him up, but he's only at 1.8 right now.
Talbot isn't signing in an extension with Ottawa, or at least he hasn't yet. I do know that his name was brought up in the past, being connected to Buffalo. I could see that being a guy.
Would you take him for 3.6?
Yeah, 100%. You're telling, is Cam Talbot an upgrade over what you have right now?
Yes. Well, I know he struggled in Ottawa. Cam Talbot last year until Fleury got there. So here's what sucks: if they give Talbot the start in game 1. Guys, he was on, and he had incredible numbers last year. Do you remember how good he was, Duane?
Yep.
And now look what he's shriveled into. So yeah, if you're talking about that Cam Talbot, fuck yeah, give me him right now. I'd pay $5 million for him.
All day, I would take that.
Anybody else like Mackenzie Blackwood? Does he attract you? Hasn't he fell out of favor over there?
Yeah, I like Mackenzie Blackwood. I mean, he's
again, that's a younger guy. That's a younger guy.
Or third choice, but I think that given the opportunity, he might play well here.
Again, though, Jonathan, I think his contract. That's what makes him so undesirable right now. Is that 5.8 number? Like, if you can get a Jonathan Quicken next year to be what that Craig Anderson is, I think going back to the question, I think that'd be good bridge. But I just when you trot out UPL night after night, I'm glad because it's finally put up or shut up. I just think that this move kind of proves my point that you could have known 2 years ago that this guy would never had NHL chops. And that's not me shitting on him. He could be a very good AHL goalie, and that's something to be fucking damn proud of. And again, I'm not even saying he's not an NHL guy. I just don't – we've been looking for our guy, right?
Yep.
I don't know. What? Any other trades today that I missed Nick
Bonino going back to
Columbus?
No, Penguins.
Wait, Nick Bonino?
Nick Bonino, yep, Eagles.
Oh, Bonino. Okay, I'm on it here now.
Verana was traded. Verana to St. Louis, I believe.
Klinberg went to
he went from Anaheim to
Minnesota.
Yep, Minnesota, which is kind of confusing because I felt like, he's an aging defenseman. I didn't really understand what Minnesota's thinking there.
He struggled in Anaheim. He's been bad. And I know he isn't the same he used to be, Duane, but I'm telling you, I think he needs a fresh change of scenery. Heard rumors Sabres might try to trade for Carlson and Demko in off seasons to enhance roster. Eastern Conference is high value talent rosters. I mean, what Carlson are we talking about?
If he's talking about Eric, they gotta eat half that salary.
Okay. If we were going,
can afford that salary.
I would love to have EK, not on that deal. Who was the other name you mentioned?
First off, you would have to get San Jose to eat half that hit.
And then have another third team broker in another 25%.
Like that, yeah. There would have to be a third team broker. That's the only way that happens. I mean, especially when you have to sign, you would have to sign Dahlin here in the offseason. You're probably
that'd be basically like saying, hey, we're going to take an aging Erik Karlsson over Owen Power or extending over Owen Power or Dahlin. Doesn't make any sense. What was the other name he mentioned in that?
Thatcher Demko.
I've always been a big Thatcher Demko fan. I'm not going to lie about that. You bring him in. You got not only that, you got the Boston College Northeastern rivalry going between the goalies.
100%. I like that too.
I go back to the Portillo thing. The reason it pisses me off, and I hope this came across with Wish and them. I wanted to see Portillo and Levi go head to head. That would have been so because then you come out. Go ahead. UPL looks as good as Linus.
You don't have to read the comments right away. I just pull them up.
No,
UPL looks as good as Linus did for us. Look what's happening with him. Let goalies marinate. I think
Linus looked way better than UPL. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Linus Ullmark's so much better in UPL, and he was playing, and Linus had better numbers
with a worse team
has now on a much worse team.
Much worse.
Yeah, and it was what made me so angry. Not that we couldn't re-sign him, but I never thought that Linus Ullmark had any intentions of wanting to come back to Buffalo. And I thought Kevin Adams should have traded him at the deadline, and he didn't.
Here's the thing. I think Linus might be a guy that could come back. And here's why it would benefit us. We did right by him and a lot didn't try to play hardball or tag him UFA, try to play that role. He is now going to win the fucking Vezina Trophy. Right,
a landslide win. Right, nobody touches what he's done this year.
He has put up, guys, some crazy numbers, and until this year, nobody outside of Buffalo or maybe some of his Swedish followers thought that he was a top 5 goalie. Really, you go back last year and tell Sabres fans, "Hey, Hallmark's going to win a Vezina next year," they'd laugh at you. But guys, he's playing that well. Does it help that he plays for Boston? Sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes those are hard teams to play for, Duane. When your team has the puck for 15 minutes and you only get 5 shots a period some nights, those are fucking tough. And Ullmark's been awesome. Proud of him. I really am.
And somehow Boston found a way to get better. You know, they got Dmitry Orlov, they got Tyler Bertuzzi. Like, it's wild. That team was already so good, and they just got better.
What about the Rangers? And that's what I kind of wanted to do. I add with, can we go through what like the winners and losers ourselves, like every other outlet does? We don't have to do everybody, but like I would love to, on that note right there. They made themselves better. How much better? Like, let's do your power rankings. And like from now, like since in the past 48 hours, like included. Looking at the East, you're just talking about them, Boston Bruins. I don't think they needed to add much. And what was their biggest deal?
I
think that, honestly, to answer that question, I say their biggest deal was locking up Pasta. But go ahead.
Yeah, Pasta. But here's a question for you: how much better does the Tage Thompson deal look like? After now that you saw what Pasta got, they have really the same numbers. They have the same. Yesterday, they both had the same amount of points.
Well, and here's the thing: I think we know Pasta's great, and he's very good. I think we know that Pasta's about what he's gonna be like his best. I don't think we've seen the best out of Tage Thompson, and I know that's an unpopular opinion. Everybody thinks it's the other way around. It's a one-time thing. Buddy. How many unicorns like that can handle the puck and move on skates at that size? I'm sorry. I'm not saying that, Thompson's better than them, but they're just such different birds. I think you know what you're going to get from Pasta, and that's really good hockey play at an all-star level, and he's a superstar. But I think Tage can be a generational player. Do you agree with me, Duane?
I think he's a generational player right now. I
agreed. If he keeps this pace up, right? Yes, exactly, 100%.
I think that he's proven a lot of doubt. Not that there were doubters, but I mean,
there still is. Everybody has them. Duane, on Twitter.
He had a 38-goal season last year, breakout year, and the thing with me when it came to Tage is, he always had the tools. He has the size, the frame, the skill, the shot. Like, it was all up here, and just not being able to put the player in the best position to win. And when Granato moved into center, now he's a player that can work with a lot more space. He's not expected to be on the boards as much. He can really use his size and his frame throughout, have more ice to work with, playing up the middle. And I think Granato was really the X factor for that, and giving him that confidence and that swagger and put him in that best position to win. And once he did that, and you saw that breakout season last year, and then he signed him that extension for $7.2 million. It's like, guys, calm down. Like, you got a guy the size of Eric Lindros.
Every Sabres fan should have just. But here's my point. Well put, Duane. I wanted to bring this up really quick before we do the thing. Chase Prisky didn't even know he was in our organization. We sent him to Anaheim, and we got back Austin Strand. Austin Strand is okay, not fine. Strand. He's 26 years old. Played 26 games in the National League with Anaheim and LA. 3 assists and 10 PIMs in 26 games. Not a Connor McDavid. He's a 6'4", 205-pound defenseman. It doesn't say if he's a right shot. That would be nice to know. Played in the WHL. Put up 122 points and 242 PIMs in his career. I mean, those are respectable numbers. He won a WHL championship in 2017. I know it might be a nothing trade, but guys, sometimes these little organizational moves make a big deal. All right, Duane, back. And this is what I know we can't stay all night, but who helped themselves the most? Give me your Eastern Conference top 3 teams. And they don't have to be in order off the hop, but at the end, once you give me your 3, I'm going to ask you to put them in order. So not only which teams helped themselves the most, but which teams that were already in a good spot to win the cup out of the East, or at least represent the East, put themselves into that top 3.
The top 3 winners of the trade deadline all come from the East.
No, and we're going to do my main thing is which teams right now after the trade deadline now are, and you're.
Well, that's what I'm tying it all in together.
Fair enough. I agree with you. I do think our best 3 teams are from these 2.
Yeah, it's the Rangers.
I might even say 4 or 5, but let's.
It's the Rangers.
Okay.
It's the Rangers. It's the Bruins, and I'm hard pressed with this next one. It's got to be either the Devils or the Lightning. Right?
I'll give you 4. I'll let you sneak 4 in there. But you got to clarify your order here.
In the first round, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. As great as Toronto did at the deadline with their acquisitions, I just don't know if they're going to have the goaltending. I don't know.
I agree.
I think they did. I think Kyle Dubas did all the right things. He did. But his biggest mistake for me is he didn't lock up a bona fide number 1 goaltender.
Well, how can you when you're spending $45 million on 4 players? Like that's over half of your cap on fucking 4 guys. I don't know. Like, hey, I get it. I know what Chicago did with Kane and Taves. That's 2 guys. Okay. And you even added in Duncan Keith into that. That's 3 guys. They only made fucking 25. Think about that.
Yep.
3 guys making 25 that won 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years, or Toronto, 4 guys making 45. I don't know. Duane, so the Toronto take is an interesting one because, like you said, Dubas made all the right moves, but perhaps the biggest mistake is not getting his guy. But I think he finally thinks he does have his guy, because did you know that he was Matt Murray's GM in Sault Ste. Marie?
I did not know that.
Same with Jack Campbell, played for him in Sault Ste. Marie after he got traded to the Spitfires when I was there. Oh. So he brought in, isn't that interesting? Brings in Jack last year, who he traded for in junior, and I think he has his guy in Murray, but then Samsonov came in and played his ass off. You're telling me if Samsonov doesn't get hot, they can't creep in? Like, I don't know.
I absolutely think they can.
That O'Reilly trade looks good and better and better.
I mean, against Buffalo, it looked great. Against Buffalo, it looked fantastic. Listen, I hope that Toronto does win a playoff round this year. But
can I get that out recorded?
With the moves that you made, it's not about winning 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. It's about getting to the cup. Like, you mortgaged a lot this trade deadline to make this team a true Stanley Cup contender, to put them above the rest. If they get the goaltending, I think it's going to be hard to beat them in a 7-game series.
I still think it goes back to how much McCabe and Luke Schenn have left in their. How much does Luke Schenn have left in his tank? And how much can McCabe help that team? Who, honestly, they made that Muzzin deal. I like Jake Muzzin. Jake Muzzin's my favorite thing. Ironically, no shit. He played on that Sault Ste. Marie team with Dubas too. I'm not kidding. Isn't that fucking wild? Now there's a conspiracy here, Duane. Next time you talk to your friend Steve Dangle, ask him if he knows how many Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds Kyle Dubas has on the Leafs. So Rangers helped themselves a lot. Out of those teams, the Rangers, the Bruins, the Devils, and the Lightning. Obviously, the Devils and the Lightning didn't do a whole lot. The Devils obviously got Curtis Lazar. I'm trying to think outside of that.
They traded for Gustafsson too.
Right, and that happened. That happened a day or 2 ago, right? That was an earlier deal.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that's what I get where I'm getting at. Out of those 4 teams, who helped themselves the most? I think the easy answer, you look at the Rangers with Tarasenko and Kane, but sometimes it's not always the sexy players. So out of that list of teams, not even that, you can add in any Eastern Conference teams who helped themselves make the playoffs and get farthest the most in the last week of deals.
Who helped them help themselves the most?
Yes, sir. In the Eastern Conference.
I mean,
is it the Rangers?
I'd say the Rangers.
I know that's just like looking at the top moves, but you saw that. Did you see the Rangers' first game with Tarasenko when he scored in the second shift?
Yep.
Like you heard MSG rocking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now here's the question: does Kane go on that line and play with Panarin? Like, what are they going to do there?
I don't know, man. That's an interesting. to break up the chemistry of that power play they had to begin with in New York. And now you add Patrick Kane, the greatest American-born hockey player that ever lived, one of the most polarizing goal scorers that's ever lived. It's hard. It's wild to think that you might have Patrick Kane on a team and he might not be on your first power play unit.
Yes, and that he might not be like you saw what him and Panarin did in Panarin's Calder-winning season, even though he was 24.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nothing against Tarasenko, but like Tarasenko and Breadman are best friends from Russia. They played on that World Junior team that came back against Canada here in Buffalo in that third period. They're butt buddies, right? Like they're best buddies.
Yeah.
If Kane does get bumped up and Tarasenko goes down, obviously that's going to affect Tarasenko because he's not playing with, his best friend. Does that cause a rift in the room? Like, do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
I think it's a no-brainer you put Kane back on that line. But I
think Patrick Kane should be playing with Artemi Panarin.
Right. But you know what I'm talking about with the Ruskies. Like you could see it when they play together in warm-ups, like in that Rangers game.
But here's the thing: it's not like Tarasenko has been on the team that much longer than Kane.
Right, though. But I think that Tarasenko feels entitled that Panarin was a big reason that them bringing me over here. And it's interesting because Doug Armstrong from the Blues, he released a quote when that Tarasenko trade happened. He said, when Tarasenko first got here, he said, you guys need to get this Panarin kid. And they're like, nah. And then he said, in hindsight, he was right. Chicago ended up getting him, and he torched us.
Yeah. Right? So
it's just, they have a connection, Tarasenko and Panarin. I think that for people that haven't played with Russians, and I don't mean to categorize them, if there's a group of Russians on the team, they eat together, they hang out together, they room together, they go out together, and we'll still all hang out as a team, but they are always doing something with each other.
Yep.
Right? And I get it, right? It's a different culture, and it was even that way with Galchenyuk and Yakupov. They did stuff with us, but they always did their own thing too.
Yep.
And in the NHL, you'd like to think that Tarasenko and Panarin have probably been waiting their whole life to play with each other.
Talk about two guys that never lived up to the hype. Galchenyuk and Yakupov.
No, you know what? That's tough. Yeah, you're right. And I think the only thing they have in common is they played with me. So I'm the X factor that kills top 3 picks.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And they are only. I think there was only one other tandem, junior college teammates that went in the top 3 picks respectively. Mm-hmm. All right, I got to get your thoughts on the West really quick. I know that we both agree that. I think in Eastern Conference, I think they might have the best 5 teams in the league. But regardless, okay, I'm going to pull up real quick just the standings just so I can have an idea. I'm going to give you some numbers, let you ruminate on it, and we can perhaps end with this. So we're looking at the Western Conference. It'd be nice if my computer would load. Thank you, sir. Great live radio right here from Cully. All right, so looking at the West, you have in the Central right now, Dallas at 79, Minnesota at 76, Colorado at 73 in those top 3 spots. Ooh, Colorado, that is a 7-2-1 record in their last 10, and our Minnesota 7-1-2 in their last 10. Okay, anyways, in the other division, Pacific, Vegas has 78, tied with Los Angeles. Vegas has 2 games in hand. Seattle at 74, and after beating up on the Sabres, Seattle 5-4-1.
Yeah,
not the best. Your wild cards: Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, Nashville, St. Louis.
I think in terms of the West, Edmonton got much better. They're getting Matthias Ekholm. That does a lot for that blue line.
I think that's I'm so happy you mentioned that, Duane. I think that might be the most underlooked move at this deadline when we look back at implications of playoffs.
And then
I think he wins them around.
Vegas possibly finding their goaltender in Jonathan Quick.
They stole him.
They did. And you want to know what? If he can be, it's not like he has to be the same Jonathan Quick from his Cup heydays. But if he can be a solid starting goaltender for them and be playoff Jonathan Quick, that team could do some damage in the playoffs.
Here's what I agree with you so much, because when you look at fuck Eichel, but when you look at this lineup: Barbashev, Eichel, Marchessault, Amito, Carlson, Smith, Carrier, Stevenson, Kessel, Kolasar, Bluger, Howden, Alec Martinez, Alex Pietrangelo. That's your top pair. Alex Pietrangelo, friend of the program. Martinez has 3 cups. He's still got life. He's still a top pair D. Mm-hmm. Brady McNabb, Shea Theodore is your second pair. Mm-hmm. Nicholas Hague and Zach Whitecloud. And I'm telling you, Whitecloud is one of the best third pair defensemen in the league. Right? I'm not saying he'd be a top 4 guy, but to be your 5th, 6th defenseman, Whitecloud and Hague, I don't know how you looking at that decor. Now you look at the way that they're structured and they play defense and team defense. They made Robin Lehner look very, very good. And I'm not saying he's not good, but I think Quick is going to go there. He doesn't have to be the Quick he was for LA. I think Vegas plays a different style of game. I think they have more team-oriented defense. I think that he just gives them what they need to get up there. But the Ekholm thing is a fascinating one, and you brought this up. When you look at Edmonton's flawed, or whatever, what makes them flawed, obviously you have 2 of the best players on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the questions is, do you keep them together or do you split them up? Where are you on that?
I think you keep them together.
Fair enough. And then when you look at their roster, I mean, they've had a revolving door of defensemen from who they traded for with Tyson Barrie, but even going back before him. Right now, you have Darnell Nurse, who another Kyle Dubas, Sault Ste. Marie guy. I'm surprised the Leafs didn't try to trade for him. Darnell Nurse, heck of a player. Cody Ceci. But is that a true top pair? Like, I just listed Alec Martinez and Pietrangelo, right?
I don't think so.
So now they have Ekholm with Bouchard. Like, I almost think that's your top pair right there. I'm a big Evan Bouchard fan. Hand up.
I think Ekholm has to be in your top pair.
It could be just how, because him and Nurse are both left-handed, and Nurse has been there. Maybe that's why. I don't know.
However, when it comes to like matching up lines, if you ever have the opportunity, I actually wouldn't want Ekholm out there with Crosby, just because Crosby possesses the puck so much.
Right. I'd match up Ekholm against a low possession third, fourth line.
Exactly. I would want Ekholm out there with a line that might spend a little bit more time in their own end.
But here's what scares me. You got Brett Kulak and Vincent Desharnais as your 5th, 5, 6. Like, that's where I think when you go back, and I'm not saying Hague and Whitecloud are like some fucking all-star players, but man, I don't know. I just, does this Edmonton team have what it takes to get over the hump? And with Skinner's playing better than Jack, it's a little disappointing. Friend of the show, Jack.
I love Jack Campbell too.
He just hasn't had it this year, dude.
He is a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve. I think he bears too much responsibility sometimes, and I think it comes out sometimes in his game.
Oh, hey, I was his goalie partner, Duane, and that is one of the most accurate statements I've ever heard anybody say about him. Say that again.
I think he bears too much responsibility sometimes, and I think it really shows in his game. I don't know if he has as short of a memory as he needs to have. And I think he cares. He's too nice, too. He's too nice, and he won't lie. And sometimes, as a goalie, you're right, Duane. He cares so much. Sometimes he cares too much.
But like you said, in Toronto, he would have all that media coverage. You remember in that game, he played unbelievable. It was like his 3rd game, or the first game he lost, and he made like 47 saves in a 2-1 overtime loss. It's like he came on the paper and said, "That's my fault. That's on me." It's like, no, dude, you don't need to say that in that game. You don't
need to say that, exactly.
And he did that multiple times. Yeah, Duane, that's very well said.
No one's expecting you. No one's expecting you to come out and say that. Like, nobody. And I think that's where maybe he needs to be a little bit less hard on himself and just go out there and just play. That's just my opinion.
No, Duane, I know him personally. Honest to God, that is so accurate, because I don't like to diagnose and shit on his game, but there comes a point as a goalie where you don't need to be heard from the media. Like, I think there's certain protocols in place that, and hear me out here. Have you ever heard of this rule that certain goalies are unavailable to the media after pregame skate? like it's common courtesy that like there's some guys in the league that it's known they don't care and they've made it known they'll talk. But like for the longest time, goalies were not available. Like it was off limits. Like to even the home team reporters, day of game, leave them the fuck alone. And there's stories about fucking Ed Belfour, like absolutely losing it on anybody that would fuck with, like, even look at him or talk to him on game days. Some of the greats, right? Mm-hmm. But you know, it's different now. I just think as a goalie,
here's something you might find interesting. We talked about Portillo earlier, not to cut you off, but
no.
Adam speaking on trading Portillo says it became clear to him that this was not a market he wanted to play in and did not see a pathway to the NHL.
Well, then he lied to us. I'm sorry. I'm not going to call him a liar, but
yeah,
he said he loved the city. Do you remember it?
Well, you know what it was too? I think when we had him on, I think the shadow of Devin Levi wasn't really there. And as that shadow kept...
Wait, was that before the trade or not?
I want to say it was before. We had on Portillo before Owen Power.
Yes, and that would have been before we traded Marchand or Sam. When did we trade Sam? At the deadline last year. No,
and you know what? If that trade never happens for Devin, I think that Eric Portillo would be a Buffalo Sabre. But going back to what we talked about yesterday, and we talked about with Greg and Arda, like, I want a goaltender who thrives on the being backed into a corner.
And I think Devin loves the fact that he's been counted out his whole career. He's found a way to win and prove everybody wrong.
Yep.
Why not do it with the team with the longest playoff drought? I think that's how he probably doesn't even think about it much. But if anybody ever asked him, I bet you'd probably be like, you know what? I'm just out there stopping a puck, and that's what I love to do, and I do best. That's how I'm going to help to save, you know, and you know, I don't know if you've told the story on air, but just when we were with Ritzkovian, did you keep the part where he jumped in, or did you take it out?
There's a part in there with Devin in there, but
I just think it's that his demeanor.
We had an off-air segment with Devin where he popped in and talked for a few minutes, and it was pretty cool. Cool. Yeah, he's going to be the real deal. 100%.
Duane, so just to tell the people at home, like you said, he didn't need to. They were in Maine or New Hampshire in a hotel, and Vermont, and they have a Hockey East game, and you know, here's a guy that could be pissed that he has to be quiet or have the TV off or have his headphones in because his roommate's using the room. Ritzkovian was using this room for the interview. He came over beaming, smiling, saying hello to us. Like, what a great guy. Like, I can't say enough good things about him.
He called me by my nickname, Duaner. I loved it.
I loved it. He came in hot with Duaner. And he had that smile on his face. It's great. Just wanted to hear you guys talk. And Ritzy had a big smile on his face. You know what? I just think that's a guy in Devin that he's been raised the right way. Kudos to the Levi family, right? Because I've also heard nothing but good things about, you know, just what kind of type of family he comes with. Him and Ritzkovian, both they grew up together. And talking off air a little bit about those memories the first time we talked to him and stuff, I think he's gonna do so well here in Buffalo because he's gonna wear his heart on his sleeve in a good way. He's gonna battle, and he's gonna be a Hasek in the way that, and I'm not taking Hasek's name.
We're not.
No. He's gonna be a guy that never quits on a puck. No, I said he's going to be a Hasek in the way that Buffalo adored Hasek because he never gave up and he made the save however he had to make it. There's a lot of that in Levi, even though he's much more polished. I do not mean to blasphemize down there.
It's not just a size thing either between the two of them. Like when it comes to Devin, man, you watch him play, he's honestly one of the most technically sound goalies I've ever seen at that age.
And his
everything he does,
his puck handling.
Go ahead.
I'm just adding to that. His maturity, his ability to read the play, his ability to use his body in unconventional ways, even though he is a very technical goalie. When he's down and out, and I've talked to a handful of shooters that have played against him, a couple of guests of the show, and they say you have a wide open rebound net on him, and he's the type of guy that can make a save that you didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not only that. Look at how many 1-0, 2-1 games that Northeastern's won this year.
Yeah, again, very reminiscent of Dom's time in Buffalo. Is like, you
get where I'm coming from with that, Ben?
He carries that team.
I don't want to keep you too much longer. I'm sorry I missed the start of that interview. I'm sure we'll get him back on, but I'd love to have Arda on and be a part of that.
Arda's a great guy. Like I said before, he's a guy that you ask him to come on. If he can, he will. And, I appreciate him hopping on with us. He's such a good dude. And again, this has been an unbelievable trade deadline week. Exciting. A lot of big names moved, starting, with guys like Tarasenko, then went Kane, Ekholm, Chychrun finally after almost a year and a half of speculation. Just all of these, Ryan O'Reilly, like all of these names. I mean, and it's not even just how active it was. It's just the face value of the names that were moved. Like,
how long has it been with everybody talking about the flat cap and just the salary cap in general? How much the NBA trade deadline has been so much better than the NHL trade deadline. And I get it because the whole way the cap works, and like in the NBA, you can be $100 million above the cap and you just pay a tax on it, right? So but I think that what started it all off, it wasn't even the trade deadline, it was the summer. I think it was the first sign and trade in NHL history with Matthew Tkachuk that started this thought and kept it going, because you go back before that, it was tough to see star for star trades or just stars get traded in general. I think the rising cap is going to allow us to see more trades like this, and I'm really excited for it. And I'm more excited to know that the Sabres have really spent their money wisely and their extensions. Huge pleasure to have Arda and Wish on. I know their time's valuable. Duane,
especially
I know that you killed it, the trade deadline. Thank you for letting me hop on according to my schedule. It's been a blast. I know we got some good guests coming up, and not only taking us into playoffs, but hopefully a playoff stretch, like a little run to make the playoffs. Sounds like something we haven't experienced in 9 years?
It's been 11 years.
11? No, I mean like since we've been even close. Wasn't there 1 year we were pretty close?
So do you think Jordan Greenway, obviously he can't replace Alex Tuch and what he can do, but do you think Jordan Greenway and Riley Stillman are going to be enough to get this team to the playoffs?
Tuch is confirmed out for the year? No,
he's not. He's not confirmed out for the year.
And Dahlin, how long is Dahlin's injury?
He's out at least. He's expected to be out tomorrow. Anything after that?
So that one's more day to day.
Yeah, it's day to day.
Tuch is week to week.
It was week to week. But I saw something on Twitter like they're hoping that maybe he could be skating again by next week.
Okay, now this changes dramatically. Well, then let me preface it on that, and I'll kick it back to you. If it's not the high ankle sprain that I've been worried about, because that's a long termer, right? Depending on how bad it is. If it is, if you did hear correctly that he could be back in a week, then it's a sprained ankle, right? Something he can have taped up and play with.
Yeah.
Now I think that I don't think Stillman's going to add much to this equation. Maybe some depth that is, and again, I'm with you. I don't think he's above average replacement for. But that's tough when you got guys like Clegg and them. So maybe he is. I think Greenway, the sooner he can get acclimated into this group, the better. I hope that Tuch is in the room doing rehab around the boys, which I'm sure he will be because he's, unless they have him somewhere specifically, which they do for some injuries.
Yeah.
What was your exact question? Do they help fill the gap and get us to playoffs?
Do you think Greenway and Stillman will be enough to win them enough games, until Dahlin is 100% back, and of course, when Tuch is back? Do you think those guys are good enough replacement players? Because again, you can't replace Alex Tuch with Jordan Greenway. It's just not happening. But do you think he's going to be, benefit this lineup enough right now to help them win enough games while he's out to get this team over the hump into the playoffs?
Yes, and I'll preface it with one thing. He has familiarity with the coach, And one of the hardest parts about coming into a lineup mid-season is familiarity. You might know some of the guys that you might have played with along the way, and you know of them, but you have a coach that knows your skills and weaknesses and knows how to use you, and he has faith in you. So I think that those are three things that really, for somebody that's been traded that a lot itself, and not comparing it to this level, but those all really help because it helps you get acclimated and you feel comfortable within this coach's systems. Not even just that, but the communication part, because every coach is different. Can you imagine getting traded to like Philly and it's your like first or second NHL year and you got to fucking deal with torts? You know what I mean? Like that would be tough to get acclimated to. I think that, yes, I think Jordan helps us stay afloat. I really hope that we can find, once Tuck is back, we can find some lethal line combinations that'll only make our third line better, right? You know what I'm getting at? I'm interested to see who his long-term line mates could be, because I think when you do that, some interesting third lines start to come up.
Agreed.
And what you do in general with those bottom 7 forwards now, I think that is something we haven't really had. It's been, hey, this is what we have. We can change a little bit, but you got a guy like this that can play a skill game, can play a heavy game. I think Donnie knows exactly what he's getting, and that's what I like about the deal. Kick it back to you. Your thoughts. Same question.
I think he is. I think that he plays obviously a much different style than Alex Tuch, but I think it's a style of hockey, especially defensively, because that's the big thing about him is he plays a very responsible defensive game. Is something this team doesn't really have in a player right now that plays that well defensively as a forward. I think that
long reach with his stick. Sorry,
he has a toughness to this team that's been lacking. He's going to make the opponent, hopefully even the other team's top lines, they're going to think twice when he's out there. They're going to hear him coming. They're going to be on the lookout, looking over their shoulder for him. He's 6'6", 235 pounds. He's a big guy, a very big guy. And you have to respect that. You have to. So
he plays heavy, but he plays heavy quickly. You know what I'm trying to say? I think you look at a guy like Delorier in early years in Buffalo as the game was like evolving away from just fighters. He's somebody that kept himself in the league by being a better skater. Yep. I think you're looking at Delorier 2.0 with more ceiling, higher skill level, and just a better athlete. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And maybe Delorier gets the edge in the fighting, but like I don't think it's our problem isn't winning fights. It's the willingness to stick up for your teammates, right? Mm-hmm. So in that aspect, I think Jordan checks all the boxes. I've ran into him once at a BioSteel skate back in Toronto in maybe 2013. I think he was still at Shattuck at the time. Mm-hmm. But you could even tell back then, Duane, that this kid was going to be special because he can move, he's big, and he's fucking nasty to play against. So I hope he brings an element of Marcus Foligno back. That's another guy that, looking back at the time, we felt Marcus was expendable, but I look back at that trade, he would be so important here right now. No what if, but it'll be interesting. Duane, I think it's been a great show. I don't want to keep you too much longer.
No, I've had a great time. Again, thank you to Arda and Greg for coming on. Thank you, Johnny, for making the time. Proud dad to go over here, guys. Daughters had great report cards.
Yes. Yes, huge shout out. I told him, I promised him, Hadley and Reese, Daddy loves you and can't wait for our special report card dinner. Improvements across the boards, Duane. No negative comments, no discipline stuff. All great, all A's and B's, and everything is awesome. So huge shout out to Reese and Hadley Cullen. Love you, girls. You're rock stars, and your dad is a fat retired goalie.
That's right.
Back to you, Duane.
Guys, it's been episode 117 of Two Goalies, part 2 of Two Goalies, One Mic. Brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case on George Urban Boulevard. Make sure for all your Sabres game day, game night needs, get over to Outlet Liquor. As you can see, Jonathan Cullen already has. Let's go Sabres.
Yeah, fucking right. Let's go Sabres. Guys, we'll be back soon. We got some great guests, Duane. Always a pleasure, my brother. Trade deadline 2023. It's over.
It's over. Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy the weekend.
Peace.